Hey guys, I want to share something that one of my professors told me the first year I was doing my PhD, and it really stuck with me. I think it was about halfway through the first semester, and I was having some difficulty with some classes. We were seeing concepts I'd never seen before. And I go up to him. I think he was having lunch maybe in the break room, and he was very nice. He would, even though he was eating his lunch, he was more than happy to, have a conversation. And I went up to him and I was like, well, do you have any advice for, preparing for classes, for studying? Because he was one of the older professors and he'd been at several institutions. And he kind of sat and he thought about it. I mean, this question, I'm sure he'd been asked dozens of times, probably, maybe even that semester. But he thought about the question and he says, well, you can do flashcards, you can set aside study time. You can study, for instance. But then he said, but sometimes you just have to sit in a nice, quiet place with a pencil and pad and figure it out, right? And that's something that really stuck with me because I think that can be applied to a lot of things. So math is very weird. And that's I'll say math is very strange. Math deals with in dimensions. Math deals with different sizes of infinity. Math requires you to imagine what a sphere would look like in 10 dimensions. You can't actually do that. It's all a mathematical construction, but you have to work with that. You have to imagine a type of geometry, a type of space where parallel lines can possibly intersect. Math is weird. So to understand these concepts, it requires a lot of time and sitting down and just thinking of it. And even when we think about geniuses in whatever field, we often have this depiction of someone who the things come to them effortlessly. You know, um, the musician who's just a genius coming out of the womb, the engineer who in kindergarten was just could draw schematics, the programmer who was designing or writing programs at the age of 6. And there are these people, but what we don't really see is that the musician who was composing as a toddler, his music kind of it was not very good. But the fact that he was composing as a toddler, he or she was composing as a toddler, the programmer who was programming, at 6 or whatever, the programs are very simple, but it's still impressive. But what made these people is that they stuck with something, they focused on it, they worked at it, they had a passion for it. And I think what this lesson can be applied to a lot of things, not so much that you have to be an expert or you have to have a passion about everything, but just being able to sit down and find a quiet place and to concentrate on things and figure things out. And I think this is greatly missing from society at large. So I recently heard that math scores for high school students or just grade school students in general are are at all time lows, and that the pandemic exacerbated this. And I don't think it's really going to get much better anytime soon because I think that there are a lot of things people can kind of, you know, I don't want to say fake their ways through or kind of rig the game where it appears to be something it isn't. Even though, if someone doesn't know history, they don't know history, but I think that maybe teachers can kind of work around that. I think with English, people don't read the books or they don't read the literature, but they can do cliff notes or summary or whatever. But with math, if you're given a problem, you're given a pencil and paper, and you're told to figure this out, there's really no work away or work around it. You have to know it. You either know it or you don't. And I think when it comes to so many things that we do, we don't really appreciate those moments of just having to focus on something, having a quiet place and focusing on something and it not coming to us right away. And I think the other thing is just, when I say the weirdness of having to confront things that seem contradictory to us. So I'm expanding this to a lot of things. You can talk about how you interact with people, the opinions other people have, the your assumptions. Things aren't always as they appear to be, and sometimes the world is much more complicated than you think it is, and sometimes it's actually much simpler than you think it is, but it's not what we expect it to be. And I think mathematics, doing mathematics is a type of meditation. And I think for me, and I can't say this for other people, in the process of doing mathematics, it's kind of taught me to look at things and to kind of deconstruct it and to hold back my assumptions. So even when I see a problem, I'm like, I think I know the answer to this, I go through the steps and I figure out how I got what if each of those steps makes sense, and then when I come to the conclusion, I know that I came to that conclusion. I can see every step of that conclusion. And quite frankly, I don't think people are very good at this. And I think that maybe that's the reason why not very many people are good at math, and for that matter, kind of the more analytical branches of science. So I don't really know the solution. I'm going to sound kind of old and crotchety when I say maybe we need to put down our devices, maybe we need to turn down our music, maybe we need to isolate ourselves and just kind of sit down with things and contemplate it and just try to understand it. And there's no substitution for that. Sometimes you just got to sit with a pencil and a paper and just figure out. There are no shortcuts.